Coming back now to the Middle East, a study carried out in Israel reveals that animosity is having an effect on West Bank tourism and attitudes. Joining us as the head of that research, Dr.Villy Abraham from the Department of Hotel and Tourism Management at Ben-Gurion University. Thanks so much for being here today. So what motivated you to undertake this study?
Well, basically, most of past research has focused on animosity and its effect on product purchase, but very few studies have focused on tourism. And around the time of the study, when we collected data, there were a lot of terrorist attacks, and we thought that it might be a good time to check what is happening in relation to Judea and Samaria.
And what were the findings of this study? Did you find that they did indeed have an effect on tourism?
Yeah, well, very interesting things. So first of all, we found a relationship between animosity and perceived risk, meaning the more you harbored animosity towards settlers, the more you saw the place as a place that is risky and you won't take your kids to visit. But one of the most interesting things that we found is that leftists were willing to travel to Judea and Samaria, but they were willing to learn about the Palestinian heritage and not about the Jewish heritage. And the rightists were willing to learn about both. And that was a bit surprising because you'd expect somebody from the right not to care so much about the Palestinian heritage. And when we talk about the perception of Judea and Samaria as part of the Palestinian heritage, we found a negative relationship on the willingness to post pictures on social networks. So it means that the more that you perceive Judea and Samaria as part of the Palestinian heritage, the less you're willing to share your experience with others, probably because of a concern over social sanctions.
So then what were the conclusions of the
study?
Study?
Yeah, well, we found that animosity is a significant correlate of tourist activity, meaning that today when you look and when you want to predict tourist activity, don't just look at the image of the destination. Don't just look whether, it's a safe place, but also take animosity into consideration. And the second conclusion is that rightists are more receptive to the Arab narrative than we have thought. And that's a very interesting thing to look into in the future.
And you really got a glimpse into how people really do think. And can the study's findings be generalized in other contexts?
Yes. Well, I thought about a few places. Me and my colleague, Professor Yaniv Poria, and we thought that a good context would be Turkey. Meaning, if you take an Israeli consumer who's considering visiting Turkey, if he is a rightist, then he might be more willing to go visit and learn about the Kurdish culture and the Kurdish history, and not just the Turkish one. However, the leftist consumers might be just more concerned about the Kurdish culture and want to learn more about them.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your study with us.
It's a pleasure.